Namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's start our Saturday class with prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Asto Ma Sadgamya, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहनावतु सहनो भुनक्तु सवीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्वी नावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 ओम. So let's open our books. Vivekachudamani. And according to my notebook, we are on verse number 386. And it could be a little different for you, either 387 or 385. But it starts with the Ghat Kalash. Ghat Kalash Kusul Suchi Mukhya Gagnam Upadhi Shate Vimuktam Ekam Bhavati Na Vividham तथा एव शुद्धम परम अहम आदि विमुक्तम एकम एव. Ghat means a pot. Kalash means a pitcher. Kusul is a barn. Suchi Mukhay, the eye of a needle. Gagnam, space. Upadhi Shatay. Shat means 100. So from hundreds of limitations, upadhis. Vimuktam, free. Ekam, one. Bhavati is. Na means not. Vividham, many. Tatha means also. Ev means alone. Shuddham, pure. Param, supreme. And over here it means the supreme reality, Param. Aham adi vimuktam, free from ego, etc. Ekam means one. Ev means indeed. Having dropped hundreds of its limitations, such as a pot, a pitcher, a barn, or the eye of a needle. So all the big and the small things. Space is recognized as one and not many. So too, Brahm is indeed one. When free from the ego, etc. So that means we got to, if you want to see the oneness with everything and everybody, we got to drop off the ego, etc. So he is giving us the example of the space. And he has been talking about this example previously also, but over here, little expansion of it. Because there is a space in a pot, space in a house or a barn, space in a jug also. But when you drop off those walls of all those things, the space is the same. There's no different space in a jug or in a house. Space is the same. So all these walls, limitations are called upadhis. So when upadhis are all removed, the one space remains all by itself. All by itself. So there can be no difference in the space. The same way our upadhis, ego, etc. means the body, the mind, the intellect, the ego. These are the conditioning around the self. Okay, so when we drop them off, the Supreme is immaculate. Supreme is the same. There's no difference between the Atma to the Atma. Container is different, contained is not. This is the point he's trying to make. Sometimes it's hard for us to see inside us, but we can easily see with these examples that space is one. Further, he is explaining in the next verse also. Brahma adi satambh prayantah mrisha matraha upadhya tatha purnam swam atmanam pashyet ekatmanaha sthitam. Brahma adi satambh prayantah. Paryant means beginning. So beginning from creator Brahma down to the blade of grass. Mrisha matraha, quite unreal. Quite unreal means temporary. Upadhya, conditionings. Tatha, therefore, purnam, infinite. Swam atmanam, one's own self. Pashyet, one should realize. Ekatmana, as one's self. Sathitam, existent. Right from Brahma to the most insignificant, like a blade of grass, that means unicellular organism. Very simplest to the simplest organism. All conditionings are quite unreal. Therefore, one should realize one's self as the only existent principle. Ekatmana. So from the creator down to the most, sometimes it becomes confusing. The creator, that creative power is created by God, but that creative power, Brahma, has the age also. Even though it's a long life, a lot longer than human life, but still there's a limitation. It's not eternal. Eternal is only Brahma and part of Brahma, which is Atma. Okay, there are upadhis around all of these. So from the standpoint of the infinite, the realm of matter is temporary. That's why it says it exists not. It's temporary. It's almost like for the waker, the dream has no reality. It doesn't have any real existence, but only when we wake up. As long as we are sleeping and dreaming, it seems real. The same way our life in this body equipment, it seems real, but it's not. So the same way the dreamer and the waker. So Shankaracharya ji is telling us to experience it. Pashyet, come to experience your own Atma. Whichever remains as the one self in all. Ek Atma sthitam. This is what we need to experience. We think we have come over here to experience this non-real. Because if we keep on experiencing the non-real, we will just come back here again and again. While living in this non-real, we are supposed to experience your own Atma. Ek Atmana sthitam. Stambha aniyan jantu saparyanta avadhi yasham te stamprayanta. So stambh means an insignificant organism. It's like a lowest expression of life on the scale of evolution. That is stambh. And in the following verse, we'll see that a conclusion, very persuasive analogy to bring this idea in our mind again. Yatra bhrantyah kalpitam tad vivekehe tat tanmatram na ev tasmat vibhinnam bhrante nashehe bhranti drisht ahi tattvam rajju tatvat vishwam atm savrupam. Yatra means there. Bhrantya, by mistake. Kalpitam, imagined. Tad vivekehe, on its discrimination. Tat means that. That means over here, imagined thing. Tanmatram. Tanmatram means that. Over here, it means that substratum. That. So that alone. Na ev, never. Tasmat, from that. Urmil, you're saying you cannot catch the verse. So it's Yatra Bhrantya. What is the number of that verse, Jyoti? Can you tell Urmil? I don't want anybody to be left behind.
387.
Is it 387? Okay, Urmil, so it's 387. Let me start again. Yatra means there, Bhrantya by mistake, Kalpitam imagined, Tad Vivekehe, on its discrimination. Vivek is the discrimination. Tat means that, Tan matram, that alone. Na ev, never. Tasmat, from that. Vibhinnam, different. Bhrante, of the error. Bhranti. Nashe, elimination. Bhranti drisht ahi tattvam. The reality of the falsely perceived snake. Okay. Ahi. Rajju, the rope. Tadvat, similarly. Vishwam, the universe. Atam Savrupam is in truth the Atma alone. So he is bringing our mind to that analogy which has been given to us again and again. The snake and the rope. He says, where by mistake something is imagined to exist, there on a right discrimination, the real itself is recognized. Okay, we got to use our vivek, the discriminative power, to know the reality. So where by mistake something is imagined to exist, there on right discrimination, the real itself is recognized. See, if you break down recognized, it's recognized. Okay. So you cognized differently, but you have to pay more attention to it to understand it properly. There is nothing other than it. With the error removed, the falsely perceived snake itself becomes the rope. So it was cognized as a rope, or the other way, it can be cognized as a snake, but it's a rope. It can happen both ways. So too, the entire universe is in truth only the Atma. Okay. So he has been telling us the temporary is not real. Just like a dream is not real. The same way, we think that this Maya is real. It's not real. We got to use our discrimination. So these delusory misconceptions, we have to end in order to see that substratum clearly. Substratum never changes. There's never a change in it. It's almost like if you imagine a ghost on the post, there's no reality in that ghost. That's only a delusion. But when the discrimination, when the intellect is using the discriminative power, the delusion ends. So right now, what is the delusion in us? That this body, mind, intellect, that's real. It's not real. These are just equipments, instruments given to us so that we can cognize who we are. There's a purpose behind all these equipments. But we are using these equipments for something different. And we fall into the delusion more and more. With the help of the equipment, we are supposed to know the substratum, the supreme reality. The world is the projection of the mind and the intellect. When we learn how to transcend them, the apprehension of the Atma is automatic. We don't have to bring Atma from somewhere. It is a substratum. It is the real thing. But we have superimposed the temporary on the real. Let's look at next one. Swayam Brahma, Swayam Vishnu, Swayam Indraha, Swayam Shiva, Swayam Vishwam, Idam Sarvam, Swa Samat, Anyat Na Kinchana. Beautiful verse. It's almost like a song. Swayam, the self, Brahma, the creator. Again, Swayam, the self, Vishnu, the sustaining power. Swayam Indraha, the deity Indra. Swayam Shiva, Lord Shiva. Swayam Vishwam, the universe. Sarvam means entire, all. Swasamat, then the self. Anyat, other, na kinchan, nothing. The self is Brahma. The self is Vishnu. The self is Indra. The self is Shiva. The self is this entire universe. Indeed, nothing exists except the self. So when the upadhis are removed, what do you see? Only the reality. When I discovered the post, I recognized the post only. The image of the ghost is gone. No matter how many big eyes I saw in the ghost, they all disappear. So the same way the mind and the intellect are transcended when the experience of the infinite is there. So we got to recognize this. First, we have to believe in it. Then we have to do the sadhana, which he has been telling us to experience this. So then he says all the deities of the Vedic period are also nothing other than the one self. There is a oneness in all. Even the Parmeshwar is nothing but Brahma. Anything which is changeable, variable, the field of objects, you can call it this, and this, is also none other than the self. Other than the self, no one has any existence. They are all temporary. So everything, in fact, is nothing but self. That self means the Brahma. Antaha swayam cha api bahi swayam cha swayam purustat swayam eva paschat स्वयं ही अवाच्याम स्वयं अपि उदीच्याम तथा उपरिष्टात् स्वयं अपि अधस्तात्. Antah, within. Swayam, the self. Cha means and, api means also. Bahi, bahi means outside, outer. Or another term is used without, within and without. Swayam, the self. Cha means and. Again, Swayam, the self. Purastat, in front. Swayam, the self. Ev means itself. Paschat, that means behind. So God is in the front also, in the back also. He means indeed avachyam, in the south. Swayam, the self. Api also. Udichyam, in the north. Tatha means also. Upari shatadat, above, upar. Swayam, self. Api also. Adhastat, below. How beautifully it's explained, opened our eyes that God is everywhere. Up, down, north, south, in between the directions, everywhere. So the self is within and the self is without. So inside also, outside also. The self is in front, the self is behind. The self is to the south, the self is to the north. So too, it is above and below. So there's no place where self is not. There's no place where Brahm is not. Everywhere there's nothing but the self. So up, down, north, south, this is for our understanding. Because that's how we look at things. Front, back. So these are like a possible in reference to our body actually. Because we understand everything in reference to the body. So this great Acharya is explaining it to us in reference to our body. Even in the experience of the deep sleep, Brahm is there too. When we had the deep sleep, and when we get up, how do we know that we had a deep sleep? Somebody was there to experience it, and that is the self. That is the self. The same thing is mentioned in the Mundak Upanishad. Brahmeva idam sarvam purastat, Brahm pashat, Brahm dakshinam cha utrena cha. So over there, little different terminology, but the idea is the same. That Brahm is everywhere. Up, down, north, south, in, out, everywhere. And that's what I was telling the little kids also before this class. Experience, feel, God is with you. And this God who loves us, because we are part of that God. When we experience this, we rise above the fear. Because when our friend is with us, our lover is with us, our creator is with us, what is the fear? So just like a baby in the lap of the mother is not afraid at all. We should always feel that. Even if we have to remember, these two mantras are very easy to memorize also. Swayam Brahma, Swayam Vishnu, Swayam Indra, Swayam Shiva, Swayam Vishwam, Idam Sarvam. So it's good to memorize these. I was telling the kids also to memorize the mantras. And most of them have memorized all of them. So we should memorize this, the one we are doing, Antah Swayam, Cha Api Bahi Swayam Cha, Swayam Purastat, Swayam Eva Pashtat. Very easy to memorize these simple mantras. Especially when we know the meaning, then you put the feelings into it when you recite it. Feel the God inside you and outside you, above and down also. Let go of all those superstitions. There's certain direction, certain way, certain time. No, God is up all the time. God doesn't sleep. Any time is a good time to remember him. Don't we tell our children? Call us anytime as a mother or a father. Day, night, anytime, we are ready. No set schedule that call me only at this time. That's how it goes with God also. God is waiting that we call him, just like we are waiting for our children. Remember that we are just right now in a human body, but over here we are talking about God, Brahma. Remember that. Let's look at next one. Trang, Fen, Brahma, Buddha, Adi, Sarvam Swarupen, Jalam Yatha Tatha, Chit Eva, De Adi, Ahamantam, Etat Sarvam, Chit Eva, Ek Rasam, Vishuddham. Trang is the wave. Fen, Brahma, Buddhi, Adi. So the wave, the surf, the whirlpool, the bubbles, etc. So everything which happens in the ocean, we see all of this in the ocean. Sarvam means all. Swarupen, in essence, Jalam, water. Whether we see the bubble or whether we see the wave or whether we see a whirl in there, what is it? It's only water. Yatha, just as, tatha, so too. Chit eva, consciousness alone. Deh adi ahamantam, from the body, etc., to the ego. Etat, this, sarvam, all, chit eva, consciousness alone, ek rasam, homogeneous, ek ras, homogeneous, vishuddham, pure. Just as the wave, the surf, the whirlpool, the bubbles, etc., are all in essence nothing but water. So too, the chit is everything from the body, etc., to the ego. Truly, everything is the homogeneous, pure chit only. Over here, chit means the Atma. Okay, not the part of that subtle body. No, chit. Okay, so there's a difference, chit and chid. Remember that. So he's giving us the analogy, the waves, the foam, the whirlpool, the bubbles are all in reality water. And we can understand this. We have seen it, we have felt it, we know it's only water. So similarly, everything, body, mind, intellect, all nothing but the essence of the consciousness. Essence of consciousness is an objectless consciousness. That is the essence, tattva. So the word consciousness can be used. Sometimes we get confused with this word consciousness. But remember, when we say essence, that means the Atma. That essence is pure, uncontaminated, and everything is illumined by this essence, the Atma or the consciousness. Let's look at next one. Sat ev idam sarvam jagat avgatam vang manasayo sataha anyatna asti eva prakriti parsimani sthitvatah prithak kim mrityasanaya kalash ghat kumbh adi avgatam vadati eshaha brantah tvam iti tvam aham iti maya madiriya Sat means existence or Brahma. Sat. Ev means alone. Idam means this. Jagat, the universe. Avagatam, known. Vang manasayo, through speech and mind. Vang is the speech, manas is the mind, through speech and mind. Sataha, then existence, sataha. Anyat, other, na asti, there is nothing. Ev means indeed. Prakriti par asmin. Even beyond Prakriti. Sthitvatah, which exists. Prithak, different. Kim, what? Mrit sanaya, from mud, which is the cause. Kalash, ghat, kumbh, adi, the pitcher, jug, and the pot, etc. Avgatam, known. Vadati, talks. Eshaha, this. Bhrantaha, deluded. Tvam means you. Aham, I. Iti, thus. Maya, madriya. Maya, we understand that. Madriya. Madriya means a wind also. Madriya means Madira also. Okay. So Maya is considered Madira, intoxicant. And we all know how intoxicant the Maya is. The entire universe known through speech and mind is nothing but Brahma. There is nothing but Brahma which exists even beyond the pale of Prakriti. Can the pitcher, jug, pot, etc. ever be anything other than the mud of which they are made of? Okay. As an effect of the Maya, the deluded man talks of you and me. Tvam aham iti. So that is a intoxicant person. Under the delusion of the Maya, you and me. Otherwise, it's all one. There's no difference in the Atma. So that's it. Intoxicant. So whatever exists is Brahman, pure infinite consciousness. All that is known through the sense organs, the mind, is nothing but misinterpreted existence. Okay? Because the essence is just Brahma. When we transcend the Prakriti, there is nothing but Brahma. And he's giving us that example again, that if you look at the different pots and the pans made out of clay, when you remove the clay, there's nothing but the sameness in all of them. If they are made out of mud, they are nothing but mud. And he has been giving us the examples of the jewelry also. Different pieces of the jewelry are nothing but the metal which was used. So in the drunken hallucination of the vasanas, we assume that we are separate from each other. Separate from each other. Okay? So at least for a few minutes a day, we should practice this and see the effect of that. Otherwise, we just keep on looking at from the eyes of the pluralistic view. It's almost like if somebody is wearing green glasses, they'll see everything is green. If somebody is wearing red glasses, everything is red. And we are wearing the glasses of me and mine, me and you. And constantly we churn between this, me and you. In God, in Brahma, there is no polarity at all. This is what he's telling us again and again. Learn to look through the glasses of Brahma. So several examples he's giving us. So whatever makes sense to us, we can do our sadhana through that. Kriya sambhiharena yatra na anyat iti shruti brvitihi dvait rahityam mithya adhyas nivritye. Kriya sambhiharena, with many predicates. So that means repetition. Again and again. That's what it means. Kriya sambhiharena. Yatra na anyat iti, where there is nothing else. Shruti, the scriptures. Shruti is always the primary scriptures. That's a Shruti. Okay. Samriti is what? Secondary scriptures. Shruti is the primary. Braviti declares, says, Dvait rahityam, absence of duality. Mithya adhyas nivritye, in order to remove all false superimposition. Superimposition. With many predicates, Shruti declares the absence of duality in the phrase. And what is the phrase? Where there is nothing else. In order to remove all false superimpositions. So with the sadhana, we are supposed to remove all the superimpositions. Okay. So just like outside the superimposition, he said the pot and the jug made out of clay. In us, the superimposition is our body, our mind, our intellect. Those are all superimpositions. In the sadhana, we have to remove those. Once we remove it, there's nothing but Brahma. So what has been said so far? He says it's not my opinion. That's why he's using the word Shruti over here. That Shrutis also say the same thing. And this particular verse is pointing towards the Chandogya Upanishad. Yatra na anyat pashyati na anyat shrunoti. That's how that Chandogya Upanishad verse goes. Where one sees nothing else, hears nothing else, knows nothing else, that is infinite. Because we hear with our ears, we know with our mind, we see with our eyes. So that means these superimpositions, these limitations, this physical body of ours, or a subtle body, Atma is beyond that. We got to learn how to transcend it. This is what he's trying to tell us. So with these statements of the scriptures at many places, that's what again and again means. We need to learn it again and again because one time is not enough. Subtler the thing, the repetition is needed. Even when we say to somebody, I love you, don't we say again and again? Even something like that. Because that cannot be proved. That can be only felt, the love. To little kids, we always say that how much? Then they say this much. Right? So over here, this is something even beyond that, the essence, Brahma. So that's why again and again, we got to learn to rise above the duality. So we got to assert, make some assertion over here that Brahma is the only reality. Everything else is temporary. It's only a projection on that. And in order to remove from our minds this misconception of the reality, which we think is a plurality or duality, that's why these verbs have been used, these statements have been made. So bottom line is that we got to remove these superimpositions if we want to unveil the reality behind them. So several indications, no matter which scripture we pick up, it could be Bhagavad Gita, it could be Ramayana, or it could be this Vivekachudamani or any Upanishad. They all point towards that infinite truth. And over here, there where we see nothing, hear nothing, where perception has no objects to perceive, where the mind has nothing to feel, where the intellect cannot even think of that. And what happens? All this we can experience in our deep meditations, because we got to transcend our body, transcend our mind, transcend our intellect and the ego. And then we have to feel this, experience this. Okay, so he's telling us that vanish all this, vanish your ego. Only then the reality will be experienced. Some people call it a spiritual awakening. Some people call it experience of the truth, experience of the reality, whatever you call it. But this is oneness. My experience cannot be different than your experience. If we both are experiencing that reality, remember that. If I say that my experience is higher and the lower than you, I have not experienced it. Experience has to be same, because you are experiencing it by transcending the limited upadhis. With eyes, we can definitely see different. Somebody's eyes are better than others. There's a degree when it comes to the mind also, intellect also. But experience of the reality cannot be different. If we keep saying this is a Hindu god or a Christian god or any other god, then you are still experiencing not the reality. So this is the ultimate goal of us. We got to learn with our sadhana how to disappear our ego and have the vision of this reality, this ultimate reality. And next week we'll see that how he's telling us to use this nididhyasan. Nididhyasan is a very powerful word. I always tell you the 3 stages to this sadhana. Shravana Manana Nididhyasan. Shankaracharya ji is going to tell us. Nididhyasan. Let's stop the reading part over here and we'll have some conversation. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.